So you want to take the family on a road trip. It's not too late to back out. So if your family is anything like mine, it's always about who's got to stop, who's got to go to the bathroom, who's hungry, who needs to stretch their legs. But again, it's not too late to fly. So sit back and relax. We're going to explore the Charlotte to South Florida option and some stops along the way. Thank you for stopping by. Now, before you even step foot in your car, the first thing you need to decide as a family, group, even if you're traveling alone, what is the best time for you to travel? So, typically, whether it's dusk, dawn, midday, it's a matter of how soon you want to get there and what's the likelihood of having less stops along the way, construction, accidents, things like that. Normally, if you are traveling in the night, and I've done that before, especially in my younger days, the only thing that is a con mostly is a lot of rest stops may not be open, a lot of gas stations, however, and a ton of bright lights from other vehicles, semis, cars, what have you. So that's the only drawback. However, this is probably the fastest way to get to where you want to go with as few interruptions as possible. There won't be road construction in the middle of the night unless, of course, you're in South Florida. And if you're from Florida, you know that most of the construction happens at night. So if you're traveling from the Carolinas, from New York, DC area, you're going to have less stops. So that's having said that first. That's if you're traveling alone. Now, if you're traveling with others, you may have to compromise some. If you have young kids, when my kids were younger, we typically would leave like at 12 or 1 a.m. Because of that, we would sort of get the best of both worlds. So by the time the sun came up and everybody started waking up, needing to go to the bathroom and things like that, at least half of the trip was accomplished. So that's sort of like the happy medium, if you will. And then, of course, the best thing, traveling during the daytime, of course, there's no issues with the visibility. Safety is less of a concern because everything is so well lit. Usually your rest stops and gas stations will all be open. You'll have plenty of options. However, this is where you're going to have the most drawbacks as far as traffic, construction, maybe multiple stops. Depending on what you've eaten or drinking, you may have to go to the bathroom more than you anticipate. Okay, so let's say the trip has started and now you're starting to drive. So the first thing that you have probably already done at this point, if you have not already done so, you want to you can Google the rest stops in the states that you will be stopping in. I will start first by mapping that out. So in this case, say you're in Charlotte. Obviously, you're going to be taking either I-77 if you're along that side of Charlotte. They're near Lake Norman, Huntersville area, or I-85. And then you will take one or the other until it runs into I-26 East. And then granted, of course, this is if you're in Charlotte heading south to Florida. Map out all the rest stops. So if you Google the rest stops in North Carolina, you'll get all the rest stops along the major highways, whether you're in I-95, I-77, I-85, or I-26. Now, as far as Googling your gas station exits, I wouldn't worry about your typical gas stations too much. I've never had an issue with gas stations being open, especially in the daytime or most of the evening up till about midnight. Now, if you're traveling between 1 a.m. or you're going to be traveling between 12 a.m. till say 6 or 7 a.m., you might want to Google a few in remote areas that you will be traveling through. Some of the bigger gas stations, like your Stuckey's, your pallet stations, some of the petrol oils, depending on where you live, you may not have too many of those, but I know the Stuckey's and the Flying J's, anywhere you have a major truck stop, those are usually nice because they're well lit, they're huge, and have a lot of in and out traffic, especially if you're a solo traveler or during the times where it's a little bit more desolate and isolated. Now, obviously, if you're traveling to Florida, from Charlotte to South Florida, you're driving, you're going to have to come back. So for us coffee drinkers, I know that I'm a Starbucks drinker personally. I used to be a Dunkin' drinker when I lived in South Florida. So I know some people favor one versus the other. I find very few people that like both. So I would definitely map out your Starbucks or your Dunkin' Donuts, depending on which one you prefer, because some of them close early along I-95 or I-26. I-26 near Columbia, South Carolina has a ton of them grouped together. I-95, when you start to get in Savannah, Brunswick, and Jacksonville, has several. There used to be a 24-hour one near Green Cove Springs in Florida. However, I think they close now at 3 a.m. for about an hour. Yes, it's that deep for us coffee drinkers. I used to look forward to it all the time, but the last few times we've driven through Florida, I do not believe they're 24 hours anymore. But it's very useful to map out your Starbucks, especially early in the morning when you're craving that drink. If you're desperate, Chick-fil-A is not a bad option, though I think they've changed the taste of it. About 10 or 15 years ago, Chick-fil-A used to have some of the best coffee. To me, and it's just my personal opinion, not so much anymore. However, it will get you there on time if you're desperate and you're craving a good cup of coffee. Every blue moon will get desperate enough for gas station coffee, but it's not our preference. It just tastes like hot water or hot mud to me. And of course, I will put in the Buc-ees videos that I have recorded. This was a Buc-ees in St. Augustine, Florida, when we visited a couple of months ago. And if you know, you know, Buc-ees is just like a gas station, Walmart supercenter, if you will, all in one. It has a little bit of everything. So I will put that in the video. But yeah, my coffee addiction is gone as deep as me mapping out one in Richmond Hill, Georgia, that was in a Kroger. And that was the only one after having had driven about 3 or 4 hours with no Starbucks in sight. After you pass Columbia, South Carolina along I-26, there are no other Starbucks till you get to Savannah. And I think that's about a 3 hour trek, maybe more or less, depending on how fast you're driving. So yeah, it gets pretty real for us coffee drinkers. Of course, we've even putting coffee in a thermos before and taking it that way, which is fine. But by the time you get to drinking it, it may be lukewarm. But again, if you're looking for that caffeine fix, it's fine, even if it's just lukewarm and it's coffee that you brought from home. But the reason it's so important to map these out is because even along South Carolina, where you have the Starbucks in surplus, is nothing worse than getting off the highway and having to drive a mile or two down the road from when you get off the exit. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but when you want to get where you want to be, the last thing you want to do is be driving miles away from the highway, especially when you're not familiar with the area. So it's always useful to just map it out. Of course, you can just get in the car and wing it, but when your trip is already 10 to 12 hours as it is, the last thing you want to do, these stops add up. No matter how hard you try to combine the food, the bathroom break, and the gas, these stops end up setting you back anywhere from 15, 20 minutes up to about 35 minutes, especially if you're ordering food and having to wait for said food to be prepared. You could be 40 minutes per stop. So that means if you're traveling 12 hours and you have to stop 2 or 3 times, that's easily an hour and a half, 2 hours total in stops. Sabrina with SabrinaSnadgyTips.com. We are at Buc-ees in St. Augustine, Florida. We're going to go take a look inside and see what we can find. Thank you. Pietro said it was probably you. I'm like, somebody liked all my shorts. No, you're not.
Pietro, we'll get you another one. Pietro's for you. For what? For one cheek?
Thank you. Okay, that's enough for still at Buc-ees.
Don't get the coffee here.
Okay. So the last thing that can make a trip expensive and time consuming is food. So of course, the only pointer I have here, depending on when you're traveling, try to take some food with you, or maybe budget to where you're only stopping once for eating out. It's pricely. I mean, it's very expensive. I think one time we stopped at a Five Guys for 3 meals. It was three of us. I think that was about $65. Not that Five Guys is the cheapest anyway. However, the average meal was, oh no, no, I'm sorry. It was about 45. I'm sorry. It was about $15 each. We even tried to get one fries to share. We weren't sure how many there was. I should have known when it was $6 to $8. There was a lot of them. They give you basically a whole bag of fries. A bag of fries is enough for 3 to 4 people. It's that many that they give you. However, and we were only there maybe 20, 25 minutes. That's not counting the gas part or anything like that. That was just food alone. So try to bring sandwiches or things to munch on so that you don't have to buy it at the convenience store where it's going to cost more. I mean, let's face it, convenience stores have never been cheap. So try to bring, try to make a Walmart stop beforehand, or your local grocery store, and take those snacks with you. Even if you're not stopping for, even if you do budget for a full-fledged meal or something like that, again, the snacks, it adds up. It definitely comes in handy. You're going to get munchy throughout, especially on a 12-hour road trip. That one meal is not going to hold you for the full 12 hours. Try to drink things that don't go through you, so to speak, so you're not having to go to the bathroom a lot. So usually I avoid coffee. I avoid water, believe it or not, or take sips. I try to drink things that retain in me. Not that that's a great thing, but sodas do not go straight through me. So sodas, but I think because it's so many other additives in it, it holds me pretty well. So drink things that you know that you don't need to be going to the bathroom 30 minutes, 45 minutes later. As far as your medicines, if medicines react the same way as you, where you have to go to the bathroom shortly after, maybe start your road trip after that part of your routine is over with. So you're not starting your routine on the road, so to speak. And that's the only pointer I have there.